Hi, I'm Mikki, and this is Mikkipedia, where I sit down and chat to doctors, professors, athletes, practitioners, and experts in their fields related to health, nutrition, fitness, and well-being. And I'm delighted that you're here. Kia ora team, hope you are having a good week. Now, we were going to bring you the first of my conversations with Andrew Kutnik, as I said in the last week's podcast, but I had the opportunity to catch up with Kiwi runner Ruth Croft over the weekend, and I really wanted to bring you this conversation that I had with Ruth. Now, I don't even think you need to be interested in running to know who Ruth Croft is after she took out the entire Tarawera race, and she made headlines for being the overall winner. Since then, Ruth has gone on and done a few races before towing the start line at Western States' 100-mile event a couple of weeks ago in her first miler and coming second, and also being in the top 10 of the field as well, which is just an absolutely stunning event to debut for a miler and have such an amazing outcome for that. So I wanted to bring you this really sort of up-to-date conversation that I had with Ruth, who is currently residing in Costa Rica, taking a well-earned break after that event. Now, whilst we talk obviously about her success at the Western States race, the conversation is much more about the things that Ruth does to help her be consistent in her training, to allow her to go on and to be so successful, because this isn't a surprise sort of out of the blue type result for Ruth. She has been unbelievably successful over a range of distances, and I think this is what makes her such an interesting person to talk to with regards to her running. She's won a silver medal at the 2019 World Trail Running Championships. She won the Grand Trail de Templier in 2017. That's a sky running event. Her running bio is amazing. She's done the Kepler a number of times. She's done the Lavaredo Ultra Trail. She's come first in the Mount Fuji race, Mount Kinabalu Climathon. These are like smaller, shorter, faster events back in her sort of early days of running. And then, more recently in 2019 and also 2020, she's been hitting these slightly shorter distances in amongst some of these longer distance events. So we chat about the strength training she does, the nutrition, what her weekly volume and mileage looks like, and how her training looks for the miler compared to, say, something like a 100k event, about the importance of sleep, about the importance of mindset, what supplements she takes, and also what she did from a nutrition standpoint with Western States and how she really dialed that in and how successful it was as well. So we talk about a range of different things, and I felt so appreciative that Ruth made herself available during her recovery time to come and chat to me on Mikkipedia. So please enjoy my conversation with Ruth Croft. You've been on there a lot. It's great.
A few times. They're good guys.
Yeah, they're awesome. Actually, I saw Eugene. He was at the end of the park run today, just doing so good volunteering to do the times and stuff.
Oh, awesome. That's great. It's good of him. I've got Woo 2K coming up in Wellington. I think he's training for that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Honestly, if there was one, obviously as a runner, I love lots of different courses and stuff, but Wellington is one place that I would not probably do any sort of race in.
Why is that?
I just don't like the wind. I know that sounds really lame.
Well, I've heard good things about Woo 2K. I've never done it, but everyone talks up about it.
Yeah, I know actually, and I've got a few friends doing it, and and actually my stepdaughter is in Wellington as well, studying at Massey, and Barry husband is like, oh, we should go do the Woo 2K, and I'm like, oh my god, no. It's like thinking about doing like the Wellington Marathon or Dunedin Marathon, like both of them are so unappealing to me. Anyway, okay, so let's kick off. Ruth, good morning. Look, first of all, thank you so much for taking time to chat to me today, because I know that you are on a well-earned sort of break from life and running and everything in general. How's it in Costa Rica?
It's great. Yeah, I can't complain. I've been here, this is coming up just over 1 week. Just been doing a lot of, relaxing and reading books and did a bit of diving. And I'm studying naturopathy, so I had 2 papers due just before Western States as well. And so it's good to have a actual proper break right now.
That sounds fab. Actually, I do want to talk to you about the naturopathy a little bit. And as a nutritionist, I sort of feel like we're almost kindred spirits, but you're just a little bit younger and like quite a lot faster than I am in terms of the running. First, so Ruth, what's the COVID situation like in Costa Rica?
So Costa Rica, it is considered high risk, depending on what country. But yeah, they do have apparently quite a lot of COVID cases, but they've opened up fully. I think they opened up last August, maybe. And so coming from the States, you don't need a COVID test to get in. And then depending on what country you're flying to, you obviously will need a COVID test to leave. But then I'm fully vaccinated, so some countries I can enter without a COVID test.
Oh, that's awesome then. So you mean, so in everyday life, does it seem sort of fairly normal then?
Oh yeah, in Costa Rica it seems totally normal. You just have to wear a mask going into the shops, and then there is a curfew at 9 p.m. though. So all the restaurants and bars and everything shut down at 9. But apart from that, like everything's going as usual.
Isn't that interesting? A curfew at 9 o'clock, almost like post 9 o'clock, COVID is going to be so much more, I don't know, easy to catch or
yeah, it's interesting sometimes the approach.
It's I don't know what you're like, Ruth, with your sleep patterns, but 9 o'clock almost is like the next, it's like the middle of the night for me. So that actually wouldn't probably curtail anything I had kind of planned to do anyway.
Yeah, and it's not like this is a party trip or anything, so I'm quite fine with going home at 9 p.m.
So, Ruth, how's the recovery going? How are you feeling? Of course, it goes without saying, massive congratulations, mate. What a race. Western States, it was fantastic. So, how is the recovery going?
So pretty much after the race, I felt really wrecked, as I was saying. Like I've never felt this destroyed after a race. But then I haven't run at all. Just been doing a lot of yoga and just getting on eating, making sure I'm eating plenty, getting some massages, and just taking it really easy. And I felt this past kind of week, my energy levels are slowly starting to come back. But yeah, I still think it's going to be a few weeks until I'll get back into things.
160k, like notwithstanding obviously the heat and the those kind of conditions as well, like I can't imagine what it must feel like to run 160k and what the body must actually go through, like, because as I understand it, you were very, I mean, you're amazing over so many distances, Ruth. Like I'm not, like, you could have easily sort of probably stayed at the shorter distances and like totally smashed them out and not sort of take that leap to the 100 miler. But I mean, obviously you did. How different is the recovery for you from, say, 100k versus 160k?
Yeah, well, it's kind of all unknown territory for me at the moment. So that's why I'm really making sure. That's why I booked this trip to Costa Rica. Because I just wanted to be in a space where I could fully mentally and physically recover. And I knew that if I went straight back to Europe, I'd probably be tempted by the mountains and get back into running too quickly. And so I really want to respect this distance and make sure I give my body the chance to fully recover. I know with 100k, it can take me a couple of weeks and I could get back into some easy running in that. But obviously with Western States, as you said, the heat, I think it just took a bigger toll out of my body. So we'll see. I'll go back to Europe on the 17th of July, and then I think I'll start trying some easy jogs and see how the body feels.
Nice. And what about the mind, Ruth? Like, where's your head at right now? Because I know that with racing, when you kind of train for an event and you kind of mentally are like totally focused, and then you have the run, and then even though there's a little bit of, depending on the race, you sort of completely over it, never want to do it again for about 3 days, and then you mildly contemplate the idea of it and sort of get a bit excited, but if you get into it like a little bit too quickly, then you just you can get mentally burnt out as well. So where's your head at with the whole idea of sort of getting back into running and things like that?
Yeah, you're right. Like in a race, build up to a race like Western States, like I've been building up to it since January, I suppose. And it does take a lot of mental energy to get yourself prepared in that for it. And so at the moment, I'm honestly not thinking about running. And I'm fine with that. I had a call with my coach the other day, and yeah, he just said there's nothing on the training program, and just you enjoy this time in Costa Rica, and we'll talk once you get back to Europe. So yeah, it is important, I think, to not just have a break physically, but also mentally just totally switch out. And like, I don't feel like running at the moment, but I know maybe after a week or so, another week from now, things may change and I might start getting a bit of itchy feet. And that's normally a sign that, yeah, the mind is ready to get back into some form of training.
So Ruth, if we can talk about Western States, I mean, obviously the result was amazing, but as runners, we both know that it isn't just sort of the outcome, but, the process and the race itself. Did everything go according to plan?
Yeah, it did. Honestly, like for my first 100 miler, I don't think I could have asked for a better one. Everything went really well. Like my nutrition plan, I stuck to that pretty much, yeah, line for line. I kept myself cool, as you have to in Western States, and then yeah, the goal was to not blow out my quads as well, and just to get to the 100K point, which is a Forest Hill of Western States, and then be ready to race that last 60K. And that's pretty much kind of how it played out. I was super patient at the beginning, let the girls ahead of me go off, and just had confidence in my training that later on in the race I'd be able to pick them off. So yeah, like I was super happy with how it went, and I really, yeah, couldn't have asked for a better one. And like, I was, yeah, stoked to get second. And Beth Pascal, she just had an amazing race, like a really gutsy race as well. The way she ran it, she led from start to finish. So yeah, there was no catching her, but I was, yeah, very satisfied with second.
Mate, I can only imagine. And I listened to your interview on Dirt Church Radio, which I encourage anyone who, if they haven't already listened to it, to go and get a really good debrief of the race in its entirety. But I did love how you were talking about how there were just a small group of girls that you sort of ran like a lot of the race with, and one of them in particular had, I think, become second in another Western States run, and so you sort of knew that she,
yeah, in 2019,
yeah, and she knew what sort of, because it was it was more familiar territory for her than you were sort of like, well, I sort of knew that she would sort of know how to run an event like this, so I can imagine that would have helped. But was there much chat, Ruth, along the way with the girls that you were running with?
With Brittany, we were checking in on each other, and yeah, and then I was running with Kelly Henninger for a while as well. And actually, we were talking. And even Brittany, she got second at Western States in 2019, she also said like that group of girls that we were, it was just really good to have some company, because for her in 2019, she pretty much ran it solo from start to finish. So we were definitely talking in that and checking in on each other. And it was really good to have that company. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and what was it like, sort of in the lead up, in the couple of days up to the race, before the start? How were you feeling? Were you like how nervous were you for the 160K, being this uncharted territory for you, compared to say another distance that that you'd already done or another race that you'd already achieved at? Like, how did that feel, sort of going into this?
I was in a pretty good headspace, like one of the better headspaces I've been in going to a race. I just felt pretty, I don't know, at ease with everything, that I knew that I'd done all the training I could have, and I was the best prepared that I could be, given what I'd done. Also, there was an element of nervousness, but also super excited to do something unknown, because, as I said, like on the Dirt Church Radio podcast, I've been doing the same races for the past 3 years, and I don't get motivated by doing the same events over and over. So yeah, I was just really looking forward to seeing how the day would pan out and having a good crack at 100 miles.
So with the training then, Ruth, like I followed a little bit of your journey on Instagram, and there was the Christchurch Marathon, and then there was...
It was the 10K in Christchurch.
Thank you. And was it the Hawke's Bay Marathon you were going to be doing?
I did one in Australia. It was the Australian marathon trials for the Aussies to try qualify for the Olympics. So I did that in middle of April.
But then, of course, you did the 50K event as well.
Yeah, we went over to Ultra Trail Australia, and that was then did the 50K there. It was my first kind of trail race back after doing the road. And I remember I did that, and it went well, I won, but also I really felt like I didn't have my climbing legs. Like Paige, who was second, she was really closing in on me on the climbs. And so I knew I had a lot of work to do to be ready by Western States. But thankfully I had a bit of time, but actually looking back on it now, it wasn't a lot of time. So did UTA 50 and then had a week recovery, flew over to the US, and then it was 5 weeks until race day. And I had a 2-week taper, so I actually only had a 3-week block, which isn't a long time.
No.
But I was able to, I think I was able to get that time in my legs that I needed for a race like Western States.
Yeah. So Ruth, I have done a number of marathons over the years and a couple of ultras, and have signed up for Topor 100, the Kepler 60, Tarawera 102. Actually, as I'm saying that, I'm like, well, that's a lot. But a different kind of racing, obviously. It's participating.
Still, it's a lot, though.
So it is. And so really, my number one aim is to actually just get through in one piece, to try and stay and maintain injury free. But for someone who, you make a career out of this, what does your training look like? So for something like the Western States, which is 160K, how different is the training for that versus, say, your 100K distance?
To be honest, I don't think they varied too much at all. I was looking, my longest run in that 3-week block, my longest run was 50, I think it was maybe 53K. And then the following day, I would normally do in the weekend 2 long back-to-back runs. So one day would be maybe 5 to 6 hours, and then the following day for maybe 3 to 4 hours. And then I did that for 3 weekends. And so, to be honest, my mileage didn't jump up drastically or anything. I didn't do longer runs than what I would do for 100K. And I think it's just I had accumulated a lot of, it's the accumulation of training from middle of December that had just been consistent. So I don't think it was anything too specific. And for Western States, the one thing I noticed when I got over to the US, I did the 2 days on the course, and my quads were just blowing after that. But then the following weeks, I just got on up and down mountains, and they were fine by race day, which was good, because that's the thing with Western States is it's a net downhill course. So you've got to really have your quads condition going into it. But yeah, it all worked out. But I don't think my training, it didn't change really much compared to how I would prep for 100K.
So, but you had confidence in what you and Jono had discussed with regards to, so your coach, Jono Wyatt, who is an amazing New Zealand mountain runner who, strangely, over here in New Zealand, I don't feel like he's as well known as what he might be over in Europe, where he's sort of a bit of a, in his previous years has been quite a superstar in terms of his running. Yeah,
definitely the case. And he's done really well, because he exceeded at mountain running, 6 times world mountain running champion, but then also went to the Olympics in the road marathon. So he has a lot of versatility, which is not normal for a trail runner or a mountain runner.
Completely. So you said a couple of things, and that gives me confidence with my training program, actually, Ruth, in that it's consistency, it's accumulation, and then also you mentioned about getting your legs kind of conditioned for the net downhill, because that's where it can really suck. I remember I was running the 60k at Tarawera, and for whatever reason I don't know why, but I mustn't have done a lot of downhill running, because there's a section of the run where you do this massive downhill and then you've got 15k's to run and then you're at the end, and that 15k's is actually really runnable for a runner.
Yeah.
But my quads were so smashed from coming downhill, like immediately smashed. There was no DOMS. It was rapid onset muscle soreness. So I was like, oh my God, I've never had this. And I thought I should have trained a bit more downhill. So what kind of training did you do for that?
So it's consistency, but also specificity, dependent on the race. And so for me, I didn't do any, like I did that one weekend where I went over the back half of the course. But then those 2 longer runs that I was doing on a Saturday and Sunday, they were just making sure I was getting plenty of vert and then plenty of climbing and plenty of descending. So that was the only way. I didn't do any specific downhill workouts or anything. It was just getting those long runs in the mountains, and that pretty much conditioned my quads. Given I had come from road, so yeah, they did need a bit of conditioning on the descents, but once I did a few runs in the mountains, I think they came around pretty quickly.
Nice.
And I also do a lot of strength and conditioning, so I think that helps, as that definitely benefits as well.
For sure. And because I heard I've heard you talk about your strength training. You do it maybe 3 times a week when you're in training. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Ruth, how do you fit that in and around your running? Because it's always often the case, when if you've got sort of key focus sessions during the week, and then you've got recovery days, and it's trying to find that balance of when you fit it in. So if you're happy to share, how do you fit it in, and what do you do in your strength training?
So it depends on the sessions for the week, but I usually don't try and do it the day before a hard session. Sometimes if the session's not too hard, I can do it like if I do the session in the morning, I can do the strength and conditioning in the afternoon. So I kind of work it around that. It's just depending on the intensity of the session. But normally, as I said, I don't do it the day before. And in that program, it's a lot of like glute work, a lot of hamstrings, my core. So like lunges, deadlifts, squats. What else do I do? Glute, and trying to think, not too much upper body. Pretty much the majority of it is my lower limbs and like stability, and making sure I've got good range and everything like that.
Awesome. And is that one of the things which you sort of credit to being able to remain consistent throughout the week, the focus on strength in addition to the running?
You mean, how do you mean to keep focused within my training program, or
do you credit your strength training to allow you to remain relatively injury free?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So I got a stress fracture in my sacrum, maybe in 2017, and then after that I got Val Burke in Wanaka. She started doing all my strength and conditioning, and I've just noticed a massive difference, like just feeling way stronger, and I think also able to hold my form better. And I just think it helps you become more balanced as a runner as well.
No, I 100% agree. And as much as I try and tell my husband Barry that he needs to do strength training if he wants to go and run the wild next year.
He's doing the 100 miler?
The 50 actually.
Oh, wow,
which still has about some ridiculous amount of vert, like 5,000 meters of vert or something across it, which is like insane.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. He's doing that.
Yeah. So now that he's heard you say that strength training is sort of like, one of the key pillars of your training, hopefully that'll kind of inspire him to do it potentially. So Ruth, outside of the big long weekend runs, what's your sort of average mileage then in the lead up to, of course, just Western States, but if it wasn't too different, probably for another longer event that you might do?
Yeah, actually, those 3 weeks, I could probably tell you the mileage. The first week I did 160K, and then I did close to 5,000 meters of vert. And then that second week of that block, it was 141K and 4,500 meter vert. And then the third week was 120K, and I think it was like 3,500 meters of vert. But normally, I sit around 120K a week, and that 160, I don't really do too many of those, to be honest.
And so if you compare your training to, say, someone else who does like similar type of running to you, would your overall volume be higher, lower, or quite similar? Like, so are you a volume runner, or are you not as much?
I think I know Beth Pascal does really high mileage. I think she was doing close to 200k a week, I think, for a few weeks. But I definitely feel like her average sits probably around 140, 150. I'm not sure. It just depends on the runner, and I don't know what too many runners do. I don't know. It's not something we talk about too much. But I feel like most females would probably sit around 120k per week.
Yeah. I think I remember reading Camille Heron does like consistently can do like 160 Ks a week, or is like does this like super high volume. But I feel like that's sort of like few and far between.
And
I
it just depends.
Compared to say the Zach Bitters who do like 160k.
Yeah. And it's just what terrain people are running on, and also like how much vert they're doing a week. Like for me in the marathon build up, to do 100, like 150, 160 is a lot easier than if I'm in a trail build up. So it just depends, I think, as well.
Yeah. And so now, Ruth, you've done like this. I was looking at your stats last night on your sort of your running bio, and there's so much there that you've been so successful over so many different distances. So like, do you have a particular favorite that you really love to do, or do you just get motivated and inspired by different locations and sort of different level and different distances and stuff like that? Or is there one that you're like, oh no, that's absolutely my favorite that I love training for and I love going out and like smashing?
I think a 50k. I love 50k distance. It's just way simpler. Like for Western States, like organizing all your like your crew, your aid station, like what you want at each aid station. Like it took a lot of time. Like I had an Excel spreadsheet with my crew saying what I needed done at each aid station, like the food. Like you have to work out your like carbohydrate, your sodium, like your fluids, and then for a 50k, like you have to plan your nutrition, but it doesn't have to be so regimented. And you're out there for maybe 5 hours at most, and you can go out there, run hard, and then you're done. It's just simple. So I like that fact about it.
You're so right. Like the longer the event, the more opportunity it is for things to go wrong. And particularly like, and with the Western States, you obviously you nailed your nutrition, which was phenomenal. Like, would you say you're someone who is able to do you have a cast iron gut, or have you had gut issues in the past, or how has that looked previously, and how did you arrive at your nutrition plan for that race?
I think just over the years from all the racing and just being able to train my gut to take on gels and that, I really did struggle at the beginning. When I remember my first 100k at Tarawera, I couldn't take gels and I had to have real food. But over the years, I've been able to switch that round. And so for Western States, I talked to Ian Hellmans.
Yes.
So she put together a plan for me, because I just needed some advice on that. Because I knew, you can do all the training, but then you go into Western States and you mess up your nutrition, and that can throw your whole race. So we had a plan going into it. And for the first 5 hours, I ate real food. And the reason for that was because the temperatures would be cooler. And also, it's early on in the race, so I shouldn't be running too hard. And so I think at that time it'd be easier to get real food in. So I made these cooked brown rice and then put a bit of oil and salt and then rolled them into a bowl, and I just eat that for 1 hour and make sure I got 60 grams of carbs through that. And then I'd alternate with these. They were kind of like almond butter protein bars. And I had 500 mils of water and then 600 milligrams of sodium. So I got that for either Nun electrolyte tablets or salt stick.
Nice.
And then after the 5 hours, it was starting to heat up. And so I switched over to GU Roctane Summit Tea. And so this is a powder that I diluted over a 1 litre. And so I upped my fluid to 1 litre per hour, and then upped the sodium to 800 milligrams. And then what else was it? Fluid, sodium. And then so that GU also had in one serve at 60 grams of carbs. So that was easy. And then kind of later on the race, I'd alternate between that, and then I used Morton gels and then Morton caffeinated gels. And I stuck to that, and it all worked out.
Nice. So your overall carb intake was about 60 grams an hour.
Yeah.
Sort of for the entire race then?
Yeah.
From those different
sources.
Nice, Ruth. And those rice balls, do they come from like, I want to say Alan Lim, like there's this nutritionist in the States, and I remember seeing a cookbook, and he has talked before about having like these little rice balls that might have something in them, but just with the salt and the oil. Easy to eat?
I don't know, like those first 5 hours, because you have to eat quite a lot of real food to get the equivalent carbs of what you can get in gels and that to get that 60 grams. And so I felt like those first 5 hours, I was just eating like all hour, every hour. But it's just like, you just get it done because you know that like after that you can switch to your liquid calories. So I don't know if it was easy to eat, but in the situation of running slower and it being earlier in the race, I just kind of got it done.
Yeah. And could you have done that on, say, Tarawera, which 100K, quicker, higher intensity?
Yeah, I actually, for Tarawera, this is where I first tried real food as well. Oh, not first tried, but I tried real food because that's what I wanted to test for Western States. So for Tarawera, I actually lasted 7 hours on real food, and then I switched to gels. So then I made for that, what worked really well was Stacey Sims has these, they're called like, I don't know, salty balls, something like that. And they're made out of brown rice syrup, almond butter, and then protein powder and a bit of salt. And I ate them, and they were really easy to eat. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, that actually sounds really delicious too. Of course, for 7 hours, and then I can see why you'd sort of switch to to something else afterwards. And how often would you?
I tried dehydrated potatoes as well that race, but they didn't work out. But given like I just added hot water to dehydrated potatoes, and so I don't think that makes them very tasty.
No, not at all. So Ruth, how often would you train your race nutrition, say in training over that 3 week sort of block that you did? How often did you sort of go out and go, right, I'm having 60 grams of carbs an hour for this entire run? Or would you actually just do that in your long runs generally anyway?
I just did it in my long runs. I tried those bars because I bought those in the US, and I was just trying them on the long runs. And then every run I was more trying to get more fluids in because I don't really normally drink a litre an hour. So even on runs that weren't long, I would make sure I had getting used to carrying 2 handhelds and drinking more fluids. Yeah, and so then practicing the eating part just on the long runs, really.
Yeah, nice. And what do you do, generally speaking, in your training, like in terms of eating beforehand? People are always super interested in knowing what the pros do with regards to their nutrition.
So I always eat something before heading out the door, no matter what the training is. I always make sure, even if it's an easy run, just have like a banana and some nut butter. And then it just depends on what time of the day I'm training as well. But normally for breakfast, for breakfast I've been big on like green smoothies. It was my latest kind of thing. And that would just be like spinach, chlorella, what else? Like a pea protein, avocado, banana, and then some like almond milk. And then granola kind of on top. That's been my breakfast of late.
Delicious. And then since you mentioned breakfast, so what other types of things do you eat there, Ruth? Like, what about your general sort of lunch and things like that?
Yeah, I'm gluten intolerant, but then for like lunch, it's normally just stuff like thrown in a bowl and a dressing or something added to it. It'd be like a rice, like with some form of protein, whether it be like eggs or chicken or anything like that, with some nuts and seeds and some like lettuce and tomato. And then dinner, this is where I need some actually new cooking inspiration. Like sometimes you're just functionally eating. It's also similar, like some quinoa like there's pretty like some grains, some veggies, and some form of protein. It's actually not that exciting.
Yeah, it's funny like that, hey? We all I mean, if you're bored with your food, you're right, then variety is good. But oftentimes people eat sort of the same thing. But if they're not bored, might look boring. Like if you look at my Instagram feed, like my meals are pretty much very similar. Dinner's very similar. Lunch is almost always the same. But I'm not overly bored by it, so that's not necessarily.
That's good.
Not a bad thing. And so Ruth, you're studying naturopathy, and you sort of talk us through what you sort of just ate. So have you always been interested in the health kind of aspect of it, or have you always been interested in health, basically?
I have been, to be honest, and it's. I realize what a big part it can play in your performance and your recovery as a runner. And so it was started last year. I kind of decided that, I wanted to learn more about it. And so I enrolled in the New Zealand School of Naturopathy and have started studying that. But definitely, it's something I've always been interested in.
Yeah, nice. Because as I understand it, you do daily meditation, and you sort of credit meditation and your meditative practice too as being part of your sort of your training and allowing you to succeed with your running and stuff as well, right? How did you sort of happen upon meditation and the meditation retreats that you do?
So I think it was probably 4 years ago. I just finished the season in Europe, and I was just feeling really stale. I felt like I hadn't been challenged. I hadn't challenged myself in a long time, and then I just felt like I didn't have much self-development going on, and I felt like running had kind of become my comfort zone in a way, and I was just kind of seeking something more. And my sister had done Vipassana years ago, and I'd had a good friend from Australia do it, and so I ended up like very last minute finding, because Vipassana's just become very popular and it's hard to get into a retreat, and I found one in Sri Lanka, and so like within a week I'd booked a flight and got my way to Sri Lanka, and I started the Vipassana course.
That's amazing. So that's a 10-day silent retreat where you're not able to read or talk to anyone. Am I right about that?
Yeah, so it's essentially 10 days of silent meditation where you start meditating normally at 4 a.m, and it finishes, then you have a discourse in the evening, and you kind of finish at like 9:30 at night. You do have breaks throughout the day. It's like 10 hours of meditation per day. No reading, writing, speaking, like eye contact, hand gestures, pretty much nothing to take you away from working on yourself, on your mind. So it's definitely by far the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, like way harder than running 100 miles, but something that I got so much out of it, and I recommend if anyone has the opportunity to do it. I really think it's worth it.
It was amazing. And had you meditated prior to that? Like a bit of headspace, 10 minutes, not quite 10 days.
Yeah, exactly. That was essentially it. It was like I downloaded the Headspace app, I tried to do it, and just kind of like failed miserably. So it was a lot to go from that into it. But I think Vipassana, because it's so full on, it's 100 hours of meditating, you really learn the technique and you really can see the progress, where with Headspace, just doing it every now and then, I just didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. But Vipassana really kind of like throws you in the deep end.
Oh, mate, absolutely. And then so post that kind of retreat, like, do you meditate daily, Ruth?
I don't meditate, like I try to meditate daily, but it doesn't always happen. Like after that first, I found Vipassana like super full on, and like by the end, like a bit too full on, and so it taught me the basics. And then like a year later I went back and where did I go? I went back to Sri Lanka and did another 7-day one that was similar, and then last year I did a 10-day one, but which was a different meditation technique, and I felt more drawn to that one. And since then I've kind of become I do meditate more regularly, and I try to do it every day, and I find it especially helpful like leading into big events and that.
And if I'm thinking about the longer events and stuff, and particularly obviously something like a miler, like the keeping your head in the game, I imagine is like one of the hardest things. I know sometimes even going out for a half-hour run, like after about 2 minutes, you're like, oh my God, I've got to continue on for another 28 minutes. Like, does the techniques or anything you've learned in meditation, did that help, or does that help you with your racing and your running?
Yeah, I think it definitely does. And it just helps me in my everyday life as well, because we all have that voice in our head that gets carried away and it kind of starts self-destructing. And it makes me more aware of it when it is playing tricks. And then going into a race, it's just making sure my intention is right. And then in the race, making sure I'm not getting caught up in what the outcome is that I want, or not getting caught up on something that maybe something went wrong. So just focusing on what I need to do at that moment. And that's normally like making sure I'm eating and drinking enough and doing all those small things right. So yeah, not focusing too much on the outcome of what you want.
I love the way that you put that you're it's all about the stories that we tell ourselves, right? And so much of the sort of success in anything is about, I can't run 100 miles, or I'm not strong enough to do an event like that, or or look at them, I'm nowhere near as fit as those other people, and stuff like that. So I can see how something like what you do with your meditation must, how useful it would be to help sort of switch that story around. There's this book called The Brave Athlete by Simon Marshall and Leslie Patterson. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't.
They talk a lot about that in their book. It's all geared around sort of calming down and rising to the occasion, basically. And they talk a lot about those stories that, as an athlete, you tell yourself, and they provide some techniques to help people sort of overcome those voices in their head that tell them that they're not good enough or strong enough or whatnot. It's super good. And they're hilarious as well, because it's written by a British and a Scottish person. So it's a real easy read.
I have to check it out. I just read the Athlete Mindset. I think it's Athlete Mindset. I can't remember. And it was talking about how like we have a light wolf and a dark wolf, and they're in a fight. And the light wolf, it stands for like joy, compassion, positivity, like fearlessness, like all those kind of like positive emotions. And then you've got your dark wolf that's about like anxiety, fear, worry, like all those dark emotions. And it's like, well, which wolf wins? And it's the wolf that you feed. So I always like that one.
Yeah, no, I really like that one. And have you always sort of been interested in the mindset stuff, Ruth, or is this something that you have become more interested in over time as you've become, I suppose, more successful in your running?
It's not so much triggered by running. It's just, I don't know, I'm just curious and want more self-development. I don't want to feel stagnant. And by this meditation, it's just opened up a whole nother realm, which I think there's so much to learn from it. And I think it's really taught me to be able to kind of step back as well. Like I think in a lot of life, we go around reacting and not so much in a responding manner. So it's really given me that space to, see how my mind works and get a better understanding of it and not let it get carried away.
I absolutely love that. And that's something which I feel like some people shy away from books like that, or one, they don't see them as particularly relevant or interesting or important, or two, it's hard to read and get interested in the self-development stuff, because it then almost forces you to then potentially change how you interact with your environment and the people around you, and also with those thoughts, because we've got lots of these default behaviors, I suppose, and a default way of doing things that when you are forced to, when you read about something and suddenly you become aware of why you're thinking this way, then it becomes your responsibility almost to change it, and change is hard. I don't know. Yeah. So I feel like, totally. The fact that you seem to want to challenge yourself in a number of different ways, Ruth. Obviously the running and the training is one of them, but that whole self-development stuff is almost like another sort of challenge that you can kind of take on.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn, and I think even as you say, sometimes it's hard to, when you can see yourself a bit more, and sometimes we don't like that, but you get a bit of understanding of a lot of because we're a product of our environment a lot of the time, and we get passed down even from where we live, or even behaviors from our parents and stuff. And so you kind of start noticing those, but once you're aware of them, you can then, it's not so much change them, but just kind of let those all dissolve.
Yeah, no, I love that. So Ruth, I've got like a few other sort of questions and stuff like that sort of are in and around training and your life, and a bit more about you and things like that. So I think I was going to ask you, what is it that keeps you sort of training strong and consistent and healthy? But we've talked about the types of foods that you eat and the strength training and your actual training. And so you've spent like now a week now in Costa Rica doing a bit of diving. Are you diving for anything, or are you just diving and exploring?
Oh, just diving and exploring. Yeah, I went diving yesterday, and we saw turtles and stuff like that. It's kind of, I got my PADI license in Thailand quite a few years ago, and so it's my thing I do if I go on a holiday somewhere.
Oh, fantastic. And what else do you do in your downtime, Ruth? I mean, you mentioned reading. Is it like, do you like novels as well as, self-development, personal development stuff?
Yeah. So I've just finished reading The Athlete Mindset, and what other book did I read? Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind, and I just downloaded his latest one that's just been released as well. I'm not very good at reading fictional. I really should, because it's probably good for my imagination. But
no, those the Athlete Mindset I've heard of that you mentioned before as well sounds good, and I've read maybe half of Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind. Fascinating, and have actually seen that he's just gone on there's an interview with him on Tim Ferriss that I want to listen to, which will be talking about his new book. Sounds really good. And Ruth, do you like to indulge a little bit in wine or beer or anything like that, or is that not on your sort of like dietary agenda?
No, definitely. I definitely like to have I don't drink beer, I'm more a cider girl. And also drink red or white wine. Definitely do that, especially even like I'm not super strict in that sense about you gotta live life, you gotta have some fun, and I'm not strict about that sort of thing, even when I'm training.
It's so funny how we feel like a little bit better and a bit validated when we hear other people say things like that, because I'm with you on that. And I often hear runners, and they're amazing runners, and they're like, no, I don't drink any alcohol in the lead up to my event, and I might have one or two. And I think whatever works for you is amazing. Exactly. But I also wonder, oh man, maybe I'm just doing it wrong, because I just love looking forward to that craft beer every Friday night. That's sort of, and it's one of the, not one of the reasons you run, but it's like, as a way to relax and unwind after running, it's awesome. It's one of the, you're right.
And you've got to enjoy what you do. And if having that beer on a Friday night, it makes you brings you joy, then I would not take it out.
I'm definitely going to take that, Ruth. Now, any supplements that you have, as part of your everyday regime?
Yeah, I take fish oil and magnesium, zinc. I supplement with iron, and what else do I take? That I use also rhodiola and schisandra, and yes, I've also got a mushroom blend that I use, like cordyceps, reishi, chaga. Nice. Yeah. You just have those, kind of like a tincture.
Nice, and you're quite consistent with that as well?
When I'm in high training, yeah, I do. And then I kind of, when I'm having a break and that, I kind of get off everything, and so I'm not consistently on all of them. But definitely when, I'm in the thick of training, I'm pretty religious about taking supplements.
Yeah, nice. And it's interesting when people talk about, that you should get everything that you need from food. One, depending on where you are in the world, and the, the soil quality, and the ability to get those nutrients through our food is slightly compromised anyway. But then also, when you do put your body under that stress load through everyday training, it's super challenging to get get everything you need from food. And some of those things you mentioned sounded like they'd be really good for the calming the central nervous system down, and just helping with that adaptogenic response as well,
Yeah.
which I think is super important for people who are under high stress load.
Yeah, and just like working on the inflammation and that as well with the fish oil. And I think food isn't what it used to be. And even if you think you can get it through Whole Foods, I think if you've got a really high training load, it definitely pays to, get some supplementation on board as well. And I normally get regular blood tests done as well every 3 to 4 months just to make sure everything's okay.
Nice. It's such a good idea. And now, Ruth, I do remember seeing on Instagram you gingerly lowering yourself into a freezer that in lieu of an ice bath. Is that something that you do as a regular sort of thing as part of your recovery? Or because P.S. I do love the idea of it. I've been trying to convince Barry for us to get a big chest freezer to have outside our house for me, but
Is he as receptive?
He hasn't actually agreed yet.
Is he as receptive to that as the strength training?
Yes, basically. But is that something that you enjoy doing on occasion, or is that part of your regular recovery sort of routine?
It's tricky. Not too many people I know have a chest freezer, but when I'm on the West Coast, my good friend Josh Coleman, he had leukemia. Acute myeloid leukemia, and when he was also graft versus host disease and that, and what really helped him was the ice baths and like the Wim Hof method. And so when I'm on the coast, it's was having it every Sunday. So we'd go in there, he'd do a bit of breath work, and then do 5 minutes in the chest freezer, and then also there was a sauna just across the road. So then after that, we'd go over sauna. So I definitely enjoy that. I think for me it's more the mental aspect that you get out of just lowering yourself into the ice freezer, and then your mind goes crazy saying you want to get out of there, but then it's just trying to bring it back down, bring it into the present moment, and staying calm and just not trying to get into that fight or flight response. So I try and do it when I can and find a cold river if I can, but when I'm traveling, it's not always the easiest.
No, I love doing stuff like that too as well. And prior to our call after park run, I jumped in. We've got a very tidal beach just down the end of our road, and I was in on for 10 minutes swimming, and of course I Stravaed it to show people that I was doing it. And like the water temperature in Auckland, it's not that cold. It's about 15 degrees. But I agree with you. For me, doing something like that, like it feels invigorating, and I'm thinking, well, it's going to be good for my recovery, but also it's the idea that I've done something hard and that I've really, I'm like, this isn't, I really don't want to. I do want to do this, but it's hard to do. But then the fact that I do that, it can make other things seem a little bit easier. I think. Well, the next thing that I do in the day, I'm like, well, it wasn't as hard as getting in that water down the end of the road. Yeah,
and it's just finding ways to challenge yourself. Like you don't have to go run 100 miles, like you say. It's just go for a dip in the ocean, or Josh, he has cold showers every day. I haven't got to that level, but it's just ways of challenging yourself.
Yeah. Nice. Now, tell me, your partner Martin, is he very much aligned with you in terms of his diet and his sort of mindset stuff, or not at all? Was he a fish and chips man? And,
no, we definitely
wouldn't touch a weight at all.
He jumps in a lot of my training sessions, and then the strength and conditioning. We eat pretty much the same, except for he has a massive sweet tooth. Like he can just eat chocolate, like just so much chocolate or brownies or anything like that, which was a massive struggle for me when we first started going out, because when you're around someone, like normally I wouldn't eat that much of chocolate and that, but when I started dating him, I noticed I started eating a lot more of it, and so I would get really frustrated at him, but then it's me that has the problem. But we're in a better space about that now.
Well, that's good. That was the same with me and craft beer and hot chips. Exactly the same. It wouldn't be something I'd touch very much at all. But now I've grown really fond of them, which I actually think has just actually added joy to my life rather than a negative.
It's like Martin. I said to him like he should cut out, because he eats chocolate and that every day, and I was like, maybe you just you should just cut a bit of it out and just have it like in the weekends or something. And he's like, but it just brings me so much joy.
And you can't argue with that, can you?
No, you can't. You definitely can't. I was like, okay, keep it in.
And what about sleep for you, Ruth? Like, what's your sort of sleep pattern like?
So yeah, I try, I don't know, it's maybe in bed by 10 at the latest. And then be up between 6 and 7 normally. Sleep pretty well and have no issues there.
And favourite meal?
Oh, probably my auntie's Manuka smoked salmon. Akara smoked salmon would be my favourite, hands down.
Oh, mate, that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
So, Ruth, looking forward then, I know that from Dirt Church Radio that you've got a few events potentially that you could go and do later on in the year, but have you like formalized or thought what will be your next event?
Not really. Like the plan was just discuss that when I get back to Europe, but the options would be UTMB CCC. It's 100k in end of August, start of September. Then the other option is it's an Infinite Trails race with Adidas in Austria, which is in October, but that's just shorter. If I didn't do CCC, it could be Transvolcania in La Palma in Spain, or it could be the World Mountain Running / Trail Champs in November. So yeah, I think I've got one more race kind of in my belt, like a longer race, but then after that I'm pretty sure I'd just call it a year, because I think after Tarawera and Western States and then one more, I think it's getting quite a lot.
Yeah, completely. And you mentioned Adidas, because obviously you're part of Team Adidas.
Yeah.
This is now, as I understand it, you sort of made the jump from Scott to Adidas. What, if it's all right that I ask, what is it that sort of encourage you to do that, or was it just a natural sort of conclusion of your time with Scott and then you had other opportunities come up?
It was coming to the end of my contract with Scott, and then I started I reached out to Adidas and it just seemed like the right fit. I've got quite a big team now, but also their support is great. Like they'll do anything really to help you achieve your goals, and it was especially evident with the support that they gave the team, and that there was 4 of us at Western States. And so, it was really good. And also they have the team, and for me, it's quite important, especially as once I leave New Zealand, I'm on the road quite a bit. And so having those, like time when we had in Lake Tahoe as a team, we stayed at a house, and then I'll go to Chamonix after here and we have another team house there. Then we have a training camp with the team in Austria, an Infinite Trails race. So it's just good. It's just like kind of like a bit of a family on the road, and it makes a massive difference for me.
Oh, 100%. And I think, people often view running as like an individual sport. And of course it is, because when you kind of toe the start line, you're there to run for yourself. But in everyday life, I feel like running is such a good way to sort of bond with people and have that camaraderie, and as you say, have that real family feel about it, particularly if you are part of we're all part of the running community, but you've got your own little like tribe or your own little team of people. And Ruth, I've got to say, the way that you just described, turning up to Chamonix for a team and to stay with the team and have a training camp in the team house and stuff like that, it's seriously like every runner's dream. Like that would be amazing.
I'm very fortunate of it, and it's such a good group of people too. And our manager, he's awesome, and so I'm definitely stoked to be with Adidas.
Awesome. And I love Adidas kit as well. It's awesome. What do you run in? What shoes do you run in?
So they've put out the Speed Series line this year that came out, and so I was racing the majority of Western States in the Speed Ultra. And it's on the last of the Boston. So if people have worn the Boston racing flat, they'll be familiar with that. And then they also have a Speed Flow, which I use for my kind of everyday training. So I kind of alternate between the Speed Ultra and the Speed Flow.
Nice. And are you someone who's had a lot of issues with shoes, or have you generally been someone who can sort of get into a pair of shoes and as long as obviously you've got, the right sort of fit and they feel good for your feet, you're generally okay?
Yeah, I'm generally okay. I've got a pretty narrow narrow foot, and so as long as the shoe isn't too wide, which the speed line isn't, I'm pretty fine.
And Ruth, when are you back in New Zealand?
I don't know. Like I was looking on MIQ 2 days ago, and I see it's all full up until end of November. So I need to go and sit on that for like an hour and hit the refresh button and hope that a spot will come up. But otherwise, I need to find out when the December dates will get released. I would ideally try and come out the end of November, December.
Yeah, and you're vaccinated
I
and
know.
you still need to go into MIQ.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know how New Zealand's kind of going to get out of the situation that it's in at the moment.
No, I totally agree with you on that one. I don't know either. But of course, so that'll be this year, and I imagine that actually the only race that you'll be focusing on next year will be what we mentioned before, and the Milo, the Wild. Surely you'll come back to do the Wild.
Mel, he reached out to me the other day. I think Jono is even my coach, who wants to do the 50 miler. He was saying it was his 50th birthday, and he wants to do the 50 miler, and it will be the longest run. And so I think he was worried that he hadn't got the like qualifications or the standards to do it. But I think, and then he was asking for what my Western States nutrition plan was. He wanted to see it, so I sent that through to him, and I was telling him he could just adapt it for his 50 miler.
Fantastic. But like it looks like a phenomenal event, and one that I would never touch with a barge pole, because it is certainly like I'm not that type of runner.
Yeah.
But I saw do you know Anna Frost at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see her and her husband Braz are going to be doing it, and a whole bunch of other sort of people on the New Zealand trail running scene I've seen are going to do it. So Ruth, you should, absolutely contemplate that, 11,000 meters vert, 100 miles.
I don't know if I'll be doing the 100 miler. I do one of the shorter. Is there a 20 miler or a 30 miler? I think there is.
There is a 20 miler. Yeah. And it I don't know if it's over the first part of the course. We were watching a YouTube clip of it last night, because that's what we do. And it looked actually awesome. So I'd probably contemplate doing something like that too.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Ruth, hey, look, thank you so much for your time this morning and your Friday night as well. I really appreciate you, taking time out to come and chat to me about a little bit about Western States, but more really pick your brain about what you do and how you manage to do it, and the things that enable you to be successful with your running. Like, you are amazing, and I've listened to a number of podcasts and have followed your results over the last, probably you came on like particularly after Tarawera this year, because obviously you won that race outright. That wasn't the first race won outright, but you're such an amazing representation of a Kiwi chick running, and it's always lovely to follow people like you. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It's been really interesting to have a good conversation with you, and thanks for your questions and everything, and also doing all the research. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem at all, Ruth. So you go and enjoy your cider and your little thing in a bowl for dinner, and good luck with the rest of your recovery and making those awesome decisions for what you're going to do for the rest of the year.
Thanks, Mikki.
Team, well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and you can sort of see how I was picking her brain a little bit, in part because of the up and coming events that I've got. Now, if there was any opportunity to learn from the experts, this would definitely be one of those time points. And as you would have heard from the interview, Ruth has got a bit of downtime now, and then has to make some decisions around the types of racing that she'll be doing in the next year, but she's certainly not overdoing it, which is fantastic. And who knows, maybe we will see her at the Wild in December 2022. I say that like I'm going to do it. But she's certainly taking her recovery seriously, and as serious as you would training for an event like Western States. So I'm super excited to see how the rest of the year plays out for Ruth anyway. And we will include links to the Dirt Church radio podcast that I was referring to, where Ruth goes into the Western States race in really great detail, which is awesome, and also links to her Instagram page and her Twitter profile as well. So next week then, we will have that conversation that I had with Andrew Kutnick, which is definitely worth checking out, as he's a PhD researcher who has type 1 diabetes. He does his research in nutrition and metabolism, and he has found managing his blood sugars through a low carb approach has been super successful for him. And so we talk all about the research behind it and what makes it such a successful approach. Until then though, team, you can catch me over on Twitter and Instagram at Mikki Williden, on Facebook at Mikki Williden Nutrition, or on my website mikkiwilliden.com, where you can sign up to one of my meal plans, where you get a 28-day meal plan, shopping list, access to my weekly email and forum, and also the ability to ask me any questions to help individualize your nutrition response. And I also have fat loss plans up there, 8-week fat loss plan for men and women, a keto longevity plan, or you could book a one-on-one consultation with me. But if you just wanted to get my email, absolutely jump on and put your email in the pop-up box that's on my website, and then you just get thoughts from me every week on what I'm researching or what I'm thinking about, things like that. I really appreciate you listening to Mikkipedia. If you haven't already, jump on over to your podcast platform and hit subscribe and share with your mates. That would be awesome. But until next week, guys, have a great week, and we'll catch you then. See you later.